I never did any of the things that I was doing for recognition. I really felt so strongly that we have this incredible history that people are not aware of. I mean, like superhero history. I wish every Canadian could understand that dedication of service and how special it is to be in the midst of folks who sacrifice so much. That is the backbone of our country and of our nation, and we need to be proud of those folks who serve.
Welcome to Purpose and Protection. My name is Barry Pitcher. I am the CEO of Commissionaires Nova Scotia and your host for this episode today, which is going to be a fantastic episode. It is about civilian service. What most people don't know is that civilians are the backbone of frontline service, whether that be first responders, Canadian Armed Forces, and even at Commissionaires Nova Scotia. So they're great enablers. I've always been a great fan, and I respect the service that civilians offer to Canadians. In particular, today we have an interesting ambassador. Corinne MacLellan is coming in the studio. She is completely multifaceted as a civilian. She's going to highlight some of her career high points today, which will include being an Honorary Lieutenant Colonel, being a holder of tradition and history, in particular the military history in and around the Halifax area. She's also had some ambassador work. Listen, it's going to be a jam-packed episode. Corinne is truly the busiest person that I know, and I can't wait for you to hear her story. Corinne, welcome
Barry.
to Purpose and Protection. Thank you so much. I'm so blessed to have you in the studio.
Oh my God,
today.
it's a privilege to be here.
Yeah.
Keeping with the P's.
You are the busiest person I know, not because of what you do in the PR world as such a rock star, but all the contributions that you make to service, which is why you're the ideal guest to talk about service today. But before we get into any questions, it's customary on the show to present a small gift, and I have your gift here.
My goodness,
So it's our Centennial coin, and there's a card. You don't have to read it now, but the card is made with artwork from a commissioner.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, so that's a little takeaway for you.
Goodness,
in
this is
appreciation.
oh my God. I mean, for those who don't know, coins are so special. And if I wasn't attached to this headset right now, I would hug you. So
I'll take a hug, virtual hug.
Okay, well, this is good. Oh my God, thank you so much. And I mean, from an organization that I is near and dear to my heart, and I consider myself always a lifetime commissionaire. So
Thank you.
yeah.
So today, we're interested to hear about you, and not just about you, which is an amazing story in itself, but the importance of service. And in the lead up to your arrival, I talk quite a bit about ways people serve, and that you don't have to be in uniform, and that the importance that civilians play in being the backbone of the men and women that are in uniform. So let's go back into the time machine. Tell me about Corinne and who she was and what she wanted to be.
Yeah, well, I guess on the service side, I think I had a sense that I had some history, service history. I mean, certainly through my grandmother, who is still with us and 102, and she has those, those memories, and named many of her children after uncles, because it's often uncles who didn't return. Anyway, I'll skip forward to past a career of, marketing communications, working at different levels of government and that kind of thing. And then working in tourism, I was tapped to bring in or host a delegation that was coming in preparation to the lead up of the Great War Centennial, so the 2014-2018 period. And so a wonderful group of people came, Belgians and French people came from two organizations, Visit Flanders and Atout France. And so I just got to fascinated by, the work that they were doing to commemorate our nation and our, and to care for our war dead. Those incredible, we've all seen them, these unbelievable, cemeteries that are, I just wish every Canadian had an opportunity to go and visit and experience the reverence. It's just something you literally feel it in your cells when you're there. Anyway, these wonderful people came. I got to spend some time with them. I had one historian that started to tell me a little bit about, regiments that were here. And I was like, my gosh, this is there's 15 Saving Private Ryan stories that these people in another continent know about, our little part of the world. And Halifax, in particular, is so important to them, and their awareness even of the Halifax explosion. From there, they said, this is really significant. We need somebody in Canada. And me being the shy person that I am, I said, you just met her. I am that
Love it.
person.
Love it.
And so we just got on like a house on fire. And so that was like in 2013. And then I think, I'll pass by all the footnotes, but essentially we endeavored to work together, and contractually, I think I've done probably 12 delegation visits, largely bringing media, but oftentimes stakeholders over to the fields of Flanders to learn about, reignite our connection, I guess, in a way, around these big anniversaries. So you have, Passchendaele, you have Vimy, you have all of these big battle anniversaries that were happening that are just so significant in our history. And so I'll jump way, way, way back to, learning about my own connection to these, this incredible history. I was introduced to a book by someone you would know very well, Ken Hines, former curator at the Army Museum, Halifax Citadel, called The Nova Scotia's Part in the Great War. I started to read that and I just could not put it down. I just got so fascinated by that. And then lo and behold, I come upon a chapter that has Lieutenant Colonel Roderick MacLeod. And so in my family, I know that Roderick is a name. It's sort of like a generation above me. But the nickname for that name in my family is Colonel, because that man was my grandmother's uncle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he died in service in the Second World, and he enlisted because his son was enlisting, and so you would often see that type of thing happen. Anyway, he was a doctor, so he led the number 9 military. It was the hospital unit out of St. Yves. It was
probably a field unit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Anyway, he went over and he ended up. Not necessarily in battle, but in advanced dressing station, and took ill and did not die in battle, but was so well respected. There's a whole chapter on this man who I knew of his name. I've been to the house that he was born in and grew up in. In fact, I was just there a couple of weeks ago while I was visiting my 102-year-old grandmother. And and so that was an incredible thing. He was the last person in my family to become a lieutenant colonel.
Oh,
until I achieved that honorary appointment. Yeah. So
wow.
Anyway, I feel like I hijacked the beginning of this, but again, you don't have to scratch the surface very far.
Yeah, I love it. It's always good when I'm not the one talking. So thank you for your family service. That's quite a connection. And I love that you love service. And it's funny, so you're in the PR marketing world and you get this hook. You do some work with delegations and then you start reading and then you're further down the road. So let's jump right into, your love of the military history. And now you have a connection from a colonel in your family to you being an honorary lieutenant colonel. Tell me how that happened.
So it ties right into the delegation, I guess, work that was happening. And I don't need to tell you, Barry. I mean, like once you kind of, get an oar in the water, you're in the ocean, especially there's, a handful of people who are, really involved, and they're kind of like vectors, like sort of cross points across all these different organizations, which I know we'll talk about. And you and I both are in that boat. I think it was my last delegation in 2018. I did another one in 2019, and I've done others since, but under the, sort of the umbrella of Visit Flanders specifically, and for the Great War Centennial events. I had come back, and I think it was Gary Melville had asked me to come, who was a colonel. I was going to call him honorary, but no, he's a real life colonel for the Halifax Rifles, a reserve unit, historic reserve unit here in Halifax. He was also working with the Army Museum, and so I was leaning on them quite a bit for just background information, and if people were toing and froing, I would take them to the Army Museum and that kind of thing. But I was, this is about I think at that time was probably my 10th or 11th trip, and so just like when you're traveling with groups of people, it can be a little bit taxing sometimes in a different time zone. And so I came back, and they're like the very next day, so no catch up at all. He said, can you meet me at RA Park? And I was like, oh dear. And I thought, if he's asking me to, this is a big ask. And I was thinking, I don't know. And I had helped, volunteers with the Army open houses and all these things, bringing tanks to Q104 and fun things like that. Anyway, so we get to RA Park, and I'm jet lagged and thinking, Corinne, you need to learn the word no. You have got to learn. I'm having a conversation with myself in the car thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to be one of those ones. And I also was thinking, because they know that I'm kind of, some of my time is freeing up a little bit now that I'm not, going to be doing like 2 to 3, delegation trips a year. And so I was thinking I had to give myself a pep talk, and I get in there. And the first thing that was wrong was that Gary wasn't there. And Barry, you know, as well as I do, they are a half hour early, always. Nobody is ever late. This is just not. So I knew immediately something was up. So I go downstairs, and there's a couple of folks, because it's Friday. And so there's a couple of folks there at RA Park, which is such a historic place. And I encourage everybody that can get there to go visit it. And it's happy hour. And so at the time, General Macaulay is there. So I'm talking to him, and then there's another honorary there who at the time I was not even aware of. And anyway, they just asked a couple of questions. I said, well, Jesus, this is funny. I said, Gary's not here. And that didn't seem to faze them. And so then I thought, okay, there's really something wrong here. And so I said, why do I feel like everybody knows why I'm here except for me? And I said, yes. And so my anxiety level started to go really high, because I thought, boy, this is going to be like a big volunteer ask, So anyway, Gary finally comes and he says, can we have a word, or can I have a word, privately? And then he goes down the road of, okay, so we have this program. It's an interesting program. It's over 100 years old, and it's designed so that citizens can support reserve units across the country. And so he's giving me all these kind of caveats and everything. And he says, and so we, the Halifax Rifles, we have an open position for an honorary lieutenant colonel. And I said, okay. So sort of clocking some of this stuff. He said, so we need somebody who can do X, Y, and Z, and he said, and we'd really like if we could have a woman in this position. I am not at all clocking that this is me. I'm relieved. I'm thinking, oh, they're just asking my advice. They're just asking for me to suggest somebody. So I don't know if you've ever done that. Like, you're in a conversation, you're kind of like, you've already gone to the task, but you've gone to the task in your mind, like, okay, this person I can think of, this person meets all that criteria, this person's great. And then he says, so how about it? Just looks at me square in the face. And I was like, how about? And I really did not at all think that he was asking me. And I said, how about what? And he said, well, can we put your name forward for the nomination? And I was completely bowled over. I really, because I'm such a doer. Like, I never really expected, to be, people invite me to sit on boards and things like that. But an appointment was like, even talking about it now makes my fingers tingle, because it was so special to me. I never did any of the things that I was doing for recognition or for, I really felt so strongly that we have this incredible history that people are not aware of. I mean, like, superhero history. Like, and that's the thing that, with Nova Scotia's part in the Great War, again, probably 12 Saving Private Ryan stories in there, like brothers, dying together, serving together, people triumphantly, being parts of these incredible battles, like the costliest battles we fought as a nation. People from right here, like this little place in the world, did heroic is not even, just doesn't do justice to, the service that those folks did. So anyway, to even be in the midst of that conversation, to me was like, was incredible. And, the honor of a lifetime, aside from like, having my children. It really did sideline me for a minute. I'm not often speechless, but.
Well, that speaks to how selfless you are and how humble. And humility is a great mark of a leader. So that was a great story. So now you are officially a superhero. And for those that don't know, the honorary appointments that we have, honorary colonel, honorary lieutenant colonel, are appointments bestowed upon typically people in the community who are already ambassadors, who already offer their time. And what's interesting is they get the rank equivalency of a regular force officer. So tell us about your indoctrination, where you get the uniform and you get the
Yes.
On how to put your hair and how to walk and how to address people.
Thank God they allowed ponytails. The year I came in, my father said to me, I skipped the line and I skipped some of the rules too, because, as you know, that the force is modernizing. And so ponytails are allowed because as we can attest from you coming in out of the rain here today, it was all hands on deck. One thing I didn't know, so I really didn't know about the honorary program. But then when I started to do a little bit of research, daunting doesn't even begin to start, with even just my unit. Like, a former prime minister lieutenant governors. I'm like, talk about like identity crisis. I was like, are you sure? Do you guys really, was this the intention? Because, it's just hard to imagine yourself in that company. It's not something you ever imagine for yourself. And so I guess like anything, I just kind of decided to grab the bull by both horns and go for it. Even though it was, it did feel a little bit daunting. And I think at that time there was a bit of a renewal or renewed effort in recruiting for honorary positions, and they were trying to look at not the usual suspects. And so I could say for sure I am not the usual suspect for that role.
Yeah,
but
that's a good thing.
But it is. But I jumped into it, and I have to say, like, my unit. I just love the men and women in my unit. They are incredible. They're young people. They're dedicated. They come from different corners of the world, and some come from my hometown, which is really an incredible collection of people to be in our midst. But one of the stories I shared at the very beginning of. I shared it, of course, on social media, as one does, because I just thought these people need to have a spotlight on them. People need to know what they're doing and, why they serve and what's going on. And so anyway, when as we started into this part of the conversation, you mentioned, uniform, and that it's such an alienating experience for a civilian. Like, you're not indoctrinated. You don't have any rudder, when you're kind of coming into that, just the conversation. I mean, you literally need people to help you get dressed.
Yeah, and it's a whole different language.
Yeah, well, there's acronyms for that. So I do a thing now where I just say, okay, I blow a whistle and I say, okay, acronym check, because I have no idea what those letters you just said, I have no idea what they mean. And I mean, of course, I get the briefings now too. And like, for people who don't know, it is a different language. I mean, most people would not, it's sort of codified. Most people would not be able to understand what an after action report is, or a sit rep or whatever. But I mean, you're reading. Yes, AC. Well, the first time I heard AC, which is, for those who don't know, it's the abbreviation's ACK, which means acknowledge. You're acknowledging something. But when we hear AC as civilians, we're like, something's wrong.
Joking.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I had to go and get my uniform. I'm so happy that it was still when the stores were in the basement of the armory, because it was such a historic place to go. And so I went up there. A few of my people, folks on my unit, met me there. And I think if I was reading their, and I know them so much better now, but if I were to read their minds, I was just sure they were like, oh boy, like, what is going to happen here? And also I'm not a big in stature person. So I think if there was a child section, they might have tried to look for my CAD pat there.
So CAD pat, that is the term for the pixelated camouflage pattern that the Canadian Armed Forces actually just modernized, and it comes in black, green, and brown.
Anyway, so I was picking up my CAD pat, and, I mean, you're a little bit fussy as a woman, because you're like, oh God, what do I really need this many pockets on my thighs? Like, I guess I do. And so, I tried it on. I think we were all kind of satisfied with, what we had arrived at. But Dave and Sarah, who were there with me and from my unit, this was not choreographed in any way, shape, or form. And that's why I think it was so much more meaningful to me when it happened. Because you get the base uniform, but you don't get your patches and things like that. Like, you don't get your brigade patch, you don't get, not even your Canadian flag patch comes with it. Anyway, they were kind of standing there and they were sizing me up, and I thought, okay, hopefully I'm passing a test of some kind. Learning how to blouse your pants, and getting boots that just feel like they're 7 sizes too big, but trust us. No, ma'am, trust us. This is the right size. Okay. Anyway, everybody was happy, and then Dave said, I think I was starting to pull my stuff together and like maybe go get changed. And he said, just one thing's not right. He said, hang on a second, ma'am. Oh my God, I'm going to get emotional. He said, you need something, or you're missing something. And he took his Canadian flag off his shoulder and he put it on mine.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, I had to write about it. So that was why I shared it on social media, because I thought in that moment, I wish every Canadian could understand that dedication of service, and how special it is to be in the midst of folks who sacrifice so much. I mean, these are not people who are getting pats on the back every day. In fact, they're probably getting kind of, people are throwing sort of, jokes and stuff and barbs back and forth and everything. And I think for a period, and I guess this is why, I feel it's so important, the work that you're doing right now, Barry, and these conversations that are happening, because there's a time when people didn't feel proud to wear those uniforms. And I think we're in a really enlightened time right now with our elbows sharpened and fully up.
Boy, are we ever.
And we need to understand that that is the backbone of our country and of our nation. And we need to be proud of those folks who serve. And we need to support them. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to say it. I mean.
No, and you have an abundance of it. And I can tell you just from your story, as a soldier, when you give the flag, that is the one coveted piece of your uniform. The fact that they gave that to you was a sign of respect.
I think when I wrote about it, I said I choked back tears that I couldn't cry because there's I was not going to cry in front of these. I was like, they already think I know that I'm a stereotype to them already. So, but I think I was pretty tough in the moment.
And for those that can't see us, we're both welled up here.
Yes.
Because it is emotional.
Oh my God.
And you know what? I'll say it here. I mean, I think a good leader can be emotional sometimes. I think showing a bit of humanity goes a long way.
Well, and I think if we have a role as Canadians, it is to be emotionally supportive.
I think the last time I seen the tempo of patriotism was when I was in Afghanistan. I would come home, Red Shirt Fridays. I think everyone had a discount for us. You're now in the family. You're part of the superhero clan. You've got all your accoutrements and your uniform. You're up to speed. Based on your experience, and for those listening that are really tuned in now to say, I've never thought about being an honorary colonel or lieutenant colonel. What would you say makes a good honorary?
I mean, I think you have to be curious. Like, you have to be interested. Like, you have to be, I mean, I say that's one trait because you really do need to. Like, I can't imagine if I had kind of come into that, like, not understanding the program or, the history of it. I can't imagine kind of wandering through it without paying homage to the history and being enthusiastic about being Canadian. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity, and it is an honor, and it's a privilege, and it's to be treated that way. And so, so I think those are the basically the key things. But you could just be, there's Heather Rankin, from the famous family. She just was, she just joined, and we have a few more I think that are coming on stream. But there's lots of vacancies. There's all kinds of vacancies, and I think my thing is that there is really no handbook. I mean, I just show up when I can. They tell me where to be, and I try to show up. Sometimes if I have a mess kit on, I need to stay in the hallway for a bit so they can check me. It does feel like being a little bit of a toddler sometimes because, there's just so many different bibs and bobs and things that need to be, appropriately adorned. A mess kit, for those who aren't aware, I mean, when the Army and military units eat, it's often at the mess. And so mess kit means the dress that you would wear to the mess, even though it's kind of a contradiction because it is the fanciest of all kit that you will get in terms of uniform. It's sort of the red, fitted jacket, and for women, long black, very stately looking uniform. I love it. I love mine.
Yes.
So,
So, and it doesn't stop there. Now, you're also Nova Scotia chair of the Canadian Forces Liaison Council. Really curious to hear your explanation of what that is and how that contributes to especially reservists.
Absolutely. So the Canadian Forces Liaison Council is it's a civilian organization, but it's kind of hybrid. So it does work with the reserve force, certainly at the national level. So there's a provincial chair right across the country, and the territories have one as well. And so it's 130 business people across the country who engage with the private sector. And so our job is to, because it's sort of threefold. There's intervention sometimes if reservists can't get leave, and if employers don't understand that this is it's enshrined, it's legislated certainly here in Nova Scotia, and so we need to work together to make sure that people can get time off for training and for deployments and all those really important things that are the backbone of the reserve force, and also employer recognition awards, which you are familiar with, because we were so fortunate to be able to, or I was so fortunate to be able to participate in the presentation of With Glowing Hearts, and that was I think the second only one in Nova Scotia, and so we're trying to ramp that up. We want people to go online, find With Glowing Hearts online. If your organization, your company supports reservists, we want you to put in your information. It doesn't take a lot. If you don't have a military leave policy, there's a sort of plug and play one that you can fill out, and we can take it from there.
So folks, for those that don't know, the With Glowing Hearts actually comes with a logo that for those of you who run a corporation or business, when you are visited by Corinne and the team, and it's typically a mix of Canadian Forces personnel. In our case, we had the 5th Canadian Division Commander come for a visit.
General Parsons, amazing. Yeah.
And you bring all the employees in, the certificate is handed to you, you get the designation, you include it on your logo and your signature blocks. It's in our signature blocks. It tells the whole world that, hey, we support reservists. So if you're out there and you're listening, Google With Glowing Hearts and you'll see, and it's relatively simple, as you say, a leave policy, something in your doctrine that supports reservists, and then
Yep.
you show up.
Well, it's kind of, to me, it's akin to, excuse me, the experience that I had with, like on a personal level. You can kind of have it at a corporate level. So someone's saying, to me, that, you have this opportunity to, participate, support, recognize, but you're also, in this instance, being recognized for that support. So that is what With Glowing Hearts does. It recognizes your support, your designation. It's like wearing your heart on your sleeve or your Canadian flag on your sleeve, maybe.
Great comparison.
Yes. I was going to say, the third fold of those, that threefold, is that reservist employees can also nominate their employer for an employer recognition award, and so we do a number of those. I've been out and about the last few years, and it's been great, and especially it's especially special, I guess, to be to delve into it too much further. But when people from my unit nominate their employers, and so I can come as chair of CFLC, honorary colonel for their unit, and also the affiliation with CFLC and recognize those employers. And there's more and more of them. So it's great.
I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight your personal dedication, not only being an honorary and Canadian Forces Liaison Council, but your unique way to be an ambassador for our Indigenous communities. I have to give you great credit. You have a unique relationship. We, of course, love the Friendship Center. We go down there for events, and but you are always front and center. And I believe you just went to Europe with Debbie Eisen.
I did, with my now a board member,
Wow.
Commissionaires Nova Scotia board member, Elder, Honorary Captain, Debbie Eisen, 37-year, I can't remember, we can never remember if it's 36 or 37 years in the Navy. Incredible woman that I'm privileged to work with. But I'm a communications advisor to the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center, and I have been for a number of years. I also sit on their new building committee, and they've always run an Indigenous Veterans Day program, which is November 8th every year. And my colleagues in Belgium would see some of the work that I was doing, and they would say, how do we engage? How can we do something around this? We need to, do something. And through the centennial period, 2014 to 2018, it was just so busy. There was so many things going on, and it really seemed like if we were going to try to do something, we wanted to kind of set it aside and let it have its own moment. So we had been in discussion for like probably a year and a half, I think. And I brought Debbie into the fold. And of course, she can just melt a glacier with her heart and her words. And so, we kind of went from there. And then we built an Indigenous delegation for this past November 8th. And within that delegation was the great-grandson of Sam Glode, who was commemorated in the Army Museum. Jeff Purdy came with us. He's also a Grand Captain in Acadia First Nation, I guess, is where he calls home. So he came, and it was sort of in the thread of tracing people's steps. And we also had Alex Dakota's great-grandnephew, Rick Dakota, and each, he had some family members there as well. And so it was very powerful trip, incredible delegation. We had some media with us, so it was great to be able to share those stories. But I guess two incredible moments. There were many more, but the two in particular, because we had these ancestors tracing the steps of their ancestors and going to the actual place of their heroics, essentially. So the story of Sam Glode, he was one of the highest ranking, service members in the First World War. And so we went to the exact trench that he dug out. So he was with his unit. The roof collapsed on them, and basically he was credited with, saving the lives of a full unit, and then some of people. It's an incredible story. Again, another Saving Private Ryan. I mean, if you can go back and read it, you can find it readily available online. Sam did come back, which was great. He survived. Alex Dakota, not so. So we had his great grandnephew, Rick Dakota. We unveiled a plaque exactly where he was killed in action. He has an incredible story. Again, one you can find online, but it seems to percolate every few years. He was the first Indigenous officer in Canadian history.
Wow.
In Edmonton, from the Red Pheasant Reserve outside of Edmonton. But he was a police officer with the Edmonton Police Service. So we actually had members from Edmonton Police Service with us on that trip, which was incredible. He was also an Olympic runner. So he ran for Canada in the Olympics. So amazing. Anyway, so he does all of that, and then he enlists, and he goes, and they're doing training in England. And so as they're at the training ground, because he's, they're like, well, you might know something about running. So he's training messengers for the battlefield. So training them so they're running in heats, and they're racing, and they're doing all these things. So King George happens to come by, and he's seeing this incredible, athlete, running the way he is. And so he took the watch. There's no prizes or anything that they could give out or recognition of any kind. So he takes the watch off of his hand and he gives it to Alex Dakota. That watch still sits in the Edmonton Police Service. They have a display in dedication to him. Anyway, skipping forward, all these years later, this past November, we were there with his descendants, and we unveiled a plaque exactly where he was killed in action in Flanders.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is an amazing story. And I've never said this to you, by the way, but when I was CEO of the PLF, when Every Child Matters first came out,
oh, yes,
we had decided we were going to put ribbons all the way around the Halifax armories. Anyway, I said I had to get permission, of course, to do that. But when I went through my chain of command, they said, oh, yeah, we've already been through this. And they mentioned your name because you were doing something with a light show.
Oh, we did Operation Blue Nose.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah.
But you had already been the trailblazer. I'm like, who is this Corinne? she's already blazing things ahead of me. Like I was always impressed. And then when I finally met you, I put two and two together. That you did great things from the minute you put that uniform. That when you put that patch on, you really took it seriously.
Well, I just feel like a kid in a candy store. There's so many great resources. There's so many incredible, people and units. And I think that's the thing about the service community. And as I guess a communications PR person, I just feel like it's communications malpractice not to tell these stories. Like they're just incredible. And, going back to the, sort of the Indigenous delegation, I mean, those are incredible stories. The current day resources that we have can help not only elevate those stories, but tell new stories and just use those resources.
So, Corinne, we could do 3 episodes. Obviously, I mean, I
feel like I'm taking too much time.
No, you're contributing in so many multifaceted ways. How do you stay grounded? How do you find peace when you're not being such a great ambassador?
Oh, I mean, it's like the same as you. I mean, it's like your kids. I love cooking for them, and they love me cooking for them. And now boyfriends, are participating in all of that. And we travel a bit. I try to tack on, if we are doing delegate visits or something like that, I will try to tack on a few days and, drag them over. I've been able to do that with my husband, who is, ingrained in this community in so many different ways. But he's fallen in love with Flanders as well, and my colleagues there. So we have kind of lots of back and forth there. I mean, on the grounding side, I guess I do run. My treadmill is like my idea machine. I get on there and I listen to a podcast, but I find that's when your creative juices start going. But yeah, no, I think it's like everybody else. We're all the same. We're all putting our CAD pad on, 1 foot at a time, even though some of us didn't know how to blouse those pants properly in the beginning. I did learn.
So we always end with an important question. And the question for you is, what does service mean to you?
Service to me is necessary. People have made it kind of an academic conversation, and it really doesn't need to be that complicated. It's necessary for us as a society. Like, we need to serve a greater purpose than ourselves. People, I mentioned the sort of academizing of it. So people talk about social infrastructure. If we don't have, that social infrastructure and that social capital, like, we see what happens when somebody challenges it. And we understand in a hot minute how important it is, and we have it. And that's the thing. Like, it's like there's a lot of places around the world that don't have what we have. Like, we are so fortunate as Canadians to have the built-in social infrastructure that we have. There's a lot of people around the world that would love to be a part of this, incredible network that we have amongst ourselves. And so, I think, to me, service is necessary. And I think, even though people sometimes will view that as something that's taxing to them, it is not. It gives back to you in spades. I mean, it was a force multiplier in my life. I mean, I would never have been more imagined that I would be taking, delegations, to the fields of Flanders, never mind once, twice, but a dozen times, and then, make, all of these colleagues that really the tie that binds us all is a greater good. And if you want to be an honorary, if you would like to be a member of the Commissionaires Nova Scotia, which is one incredible organization, from the Chamber of Commerce Award to this podcast to all of the dynamic things and the places that you're taking it to, the farthest reaches of our not even this neck of the woods. I mean, I think you're doing things that are above and beyond what's happening nationally. So well done, kudos to you, bravo, Zulu.
And hey, thank you for being a guardian of our history. I love that you were so patriotic today. And I love everything that you do. Your story embodies civilian service.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Purpose and Protection, brought to you by Commissionaires Nova Scotia. This show is hosted by Barry Pitcher, CEO of Commissionaires Nova Scotia. Scripting, marketing, and communications by Jill Smith and Renee McLeod of Commissionaires Nova Scotia. Editing and sound design by Connor Sampson and produced by Amina Faubert from Podstarter. Special thanks to our guest, Corinne MacLellan, and to you, our listeners, for your continued support. This episode was recorded on April 1st, 2025 at Podstarter Studios. Purpose and Protection is recorded and produced in Halifax, Nova Scotia, also known as Chibuktuk. Located in Mi'kma'ki, this ancestral and unceded territory is subject to the peace and friendship treaties signed between the Mi'kmaq nations and the Crown, dating back to 1725. We recognize and respect the ongoing relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and these lands. We are all treaty people. We extend our heartfelt thanks to the service people and frontline workers who serve and protect our communities every day. Your dedication and sacrifice do not go unnoticed, and we are deeply grateful for all that you do. We look forward to sharing more stories with you next month. Until then, be sure to follow, rate, and share Purpose and Protection wherever you get your podcasts.